Hi everyone, I hope you're okay. You're having a wonderful day, or as okay as it can be. I just wanted to pop on quickly, just to kind of, I guess, talk to you ladies about how honest you are about abuse and what you've been through and what that feels like to you. And I appreciate we're not going to be always open and honest with everyone we come across in life, because, you know, why would we? We don't want anyone knowing our business kind of, you know, in normal circumstances. And, you know, people are nosy these days. They want to know everything, but sometimes it's good to keep things close to your chest. Hi Lee, hi Carla. And I just want to say, like, the typical British thing when someone asks you how you are, I just go, yeah, great, thanks, how are you? And we carry on the conversation as if life's dandy, you know, we've got nothing to worry about and everything's okay. Whereas I think for those individuals that are perhaps closer to you and are trusted and, you know, good friends, good family members, I think it's really, really important to open up about how you're genuinely feeling. Because for me, and again, this is all said with hindsight to try and support ladies that, you know, and me perhaps a couple of years ago, when people asked me how I wasn't truthful. I was always like, yeah, I'm fine, thanks, just, you know, doing okay. And then I divert the conversation to something completely different that involved not talking about how I felt, not talking about any of the abuse I suffered. And as much as people kind of sometimes, you know, with good intent try to talk to me about what I was going through and my emotions, I didn't want to. And perhaps at the time it was because I wasn't ready to open up, or perhaps, you know, I couldn't deal with those emotions maybe at the time. I don't really know why I did that, if I'm honest with you. But I must admit, in the past, probably past year, when friends, and I say friends as in it's trusted friends, you know, I would never recommend opening up to people, you know, unless you can trust them and feel like you can trust them. But for trusted friends, just be honest with them about how you feel, you know, whether you're having a bad day, you're having a great day, but, you know, you're grateful of that because perhaps, you know, it's rare for you maybe at the moment, which again is completely understandable. But the more I found that I'm honest with people about my state of mind, you know, perhaps that includes physical health as well. Sometimes after abuse, it can affect us both mentally and physically. The more I was honest with people in my close network about my true feelings, the better I felt. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and it made me feel less alone, you know, less kind of overwhelmed, I suppose, with those emotions that I did feel at the time. And I think when you relay how you feel to people in any situation in life, not necessarily just abuse, but it kind of is like a problem shared is a problem halved. And I say that very loosely with abuse because sadly, you know, sometimes we're still dealing with it. We're perhaps dealing with post-separation abuse, which is bloody hard, to be honest with you. But, you know, like a lot of the ladies in this group and the ladies that I've reached out to, we've had certain conversations, ladies outside of this group I've spoken to, speaking to others who've been through similar, or as I said, those that are really close to you, really engages and ignites a sense of community within us, a sense of not feeling alone, a sense of actually it's not me, it was them. And the more we talk about how we feel, the easier it becomes to acknowledge that the problem isn't us, it never was us, and it's not a problem that we need to kind of feel guilty or shameful about. And again, just having spoken to someone last week about this, you know, we spoke about kind of like the fear of judgment, the shame that some of us hold when we're trying to tell people about the abuse, especially when it's sort of not physical. And I don't say that to kind of undermine physical abuse at all, because it's wrong, it shouldn't happen. But with emotional abuse, it's quite hard to kind of explain to people what we've been through, what that feels like. Because, you know, from my perspective, when I was in my abusive marriage and even coming out of it for probably the first year, if not 2 years of coming out of that marriage, I was like, what the hell happened? Like, I couldn't get my head around it to be able to explain to people, even if I wanted to. And it just takes time to kind of understand and acknowledge yourself what that roller coaster looks like. But the more and more I've kind of almost educated myself, built my knowledge up about narcissists, which is a word I didn't even know when I was in my marriage. That word wasn't even in my brain to acknowledge what that was, what those people were, their behaviours or anything else. And since sort of learning about that, for want of a better way of putting it, I've been able to kind of release the pressure off myself to go, ah, right, I see. So he did that because of that, and narcissists do that. And I know the term narcissist is thrown about a lot, and a lot of people will kind of discredit individuals that talk about narcissists. But for me, it was very much a light bulb moment. I was like, ah, right, okay, that makes perfect sense. And everything started to kind of piece together, the puzzle that was really missing, because I couldn't understand it to piece it together. And it was always a constant questioning, you know, from someone like many of us ladies perhaps in this group. We want closure. Hi Kate. We want closure, so we're kind of like trying to work out, why did that happen, how did it happen, you know, what resulted in that, did I say that, did I do that, what did I do wrong? And sometimes we don't have that closure, and maybe we'll never have that closure, because unfortunately, you know, with a lot of abusive behaviours, it's so hard to actually understand it, to be honest with you, unless you're that abuser themselves, who probably doesn't even understand themselves. They don't understand why they do what they do. You know, there's lots of different reasons that people are abusive. You know, maybe it's genetics, maybe it's what they've seen through their own sort of parental relationships with, you know, their parents. It becomes their normal, perhaps. You know, maybe they've gone through trauma, they've got anger issues. There's so many different reasons. And again, I don't say that to kind of, what's the way of putting it? To kind of say it's okay, because it's not okay, it's never okay, and none of us deserve it, and no one on this planet deserves to be abused. But I think the more we can be at peace with ourselves, i.e., you know, we've done nothing wrong, the easier it becomes just to have that peace of mind and to live life in a more peaceful, less stressful, less overwhelmed state, which is what we're all striving for, isn't it, to be honest? You know, I know when I came out of my marriage, I was literally in fight or flight mode for ages. I'm not going to lie. Again, I'm probably talking about a couple of years where I was constantly on edge. What's he going to do now? You know, what's coming next? If I got a message, if I got a phone call, it was like, oh God, what's he saying now? And there'd always be that angst, just literally like inside. I could feel the anxiety rising, the overwhelm, the stress. Even without even looking at a message, you know, it could have said, you know, happy birthday for all I knew, but even just the fact that that message was from him, it automatically gave me that fight or flight reaction. And again, you know I've spoke about this before, but I think the more you can kind of control yourself and your own emotions and really forgive yourself. I don't say forgive yourself in terms of you've done anything wrong, because absolutely you haven't, but forgive yourself that this wasn't your fault, this wasn't your problem, this wasn't as a result of your behaviour. And forgive yourself for those feelings of fear and shame and perhaps guilt that maybe some of us have felt. I know myself included, you know, I felt sort of shameful and ashamed to tell people, because I was like, I didn't understand it myself. So how could I explain it to other people and kind of almost justify that it wasn't me, because I didn't understand that how it wasn't me, because I couldn't get my head around it. I couldn't get my head around the emotional abuse and how the manipulation had led to me literally having my soul destroyed. That's the only sort of thing I can kind of explain it as. After that marriage, I literally felt like my soul had been destroyed. And I just want to say, like, there's a lot more information firstly about domestic abuse online. There's a lot more, you know, videos, there's a lot more awareness, there's a lot more people who are fighting this cause to raise awareness of domestic abuse, for positivity, to try and make change within the industries where it's really needed, i.e. training for certain people, i.e. those professionals, but also for the likes of us. I think that initial training for the professionals will eventually trickle down to the individuals who sadly may be experiencing domestic abuse, and also hopefully the perpetrators too, because I hope in perhaps years to come, I appreciate it's not going to be a short-term game with this type of work, but perhaps in years to come, the shame and the guilt will change sides. So it's no longer the likes of us who are going, oh, I can't tell anyone, or what people are going to think. It should be the perpetrators of abuse who are actually going, oh shit, I can't do that because people will think X, Y and Z of me, or oh, I better not treat her like that because what will people think, and I'm ashamed, and oh, I really shouldn't have done that. And that's how it should be. it genuinely should not be us afraid to speak out. It should not be us feeling silenced. It should not be us fearful of judgment, fearful of kind of, you know, the repercussions, because literally what have we done wrong? Nothing, literally nothing. And so that's kind of something I just want to say to everyone, just to kind of, as much as you can within your trusted network, just feel free to open up, you know, within this group. Please feel free to open up about anything you're going through, any feelings you've got, anything perhaps you're struggling with. You know, life isn't perfect, and I do acknowledge that even after abuse, life isn't perfect, and my life now isn't perfect. You know, I'm 5 years out of this relationship now. Still, my life isn't perfect, but the change for me has been within me. I'm more confident, more resilient, stronger to deal with that situation now. Hence, that has had a massive positive impact. But that journey has been a long journey. It'd be wrong of me to say it's not been. I know all the ladies in this group are at different stages of that journey and got different challenges, you know, different forms of abuse. And we're all trying to do our best to kind of get through that literally on a daily basis. So I just want to say, you know, please, anyone in this group, reach out to myself, put a post in the group if you'd like some advice or support, you know, or just kind of just to say, what do people think? Have people been through this too? You know, is this normal? However you want to phrase it. And if you want to do that post anonymously, that is absolutely fine as well. You know, there is no judgment, and obviously I can't see who's posting that either. So if you feel more comfortable doing that, please do. But please feel able to reach out. And I know some of us are still scared too, because we've had perhaps repercussions, or perhaps we haven't been supported in the way that we deserve when we have spoken out. And I'm sorry for that, although it's not me. I am sorry for that, because it saddens me and it makes my blood boil at the same time that victims of abuse aren't supported more than they are now, because it's disgraceful, to be honest, the way we are supported. But, you know, myself personally, I know a lot of other ladies are campaigning to make a change and make a difference. But I just want to say, you know, just reach out. Never be afraid to reach out, ever. No matter what you're going through, no matter what the situation looks like for you, no matter what you're feeling, you know, whether that's rock bottom, whether that's kind of, oh, I've just got a message and I'm feeling a bit crap because it's made me reminisce, to whatever it be. You know, as I said, we're all in different stages of our healing, and I want us within this community to really be there for each other, because for me personally, that made the difference. I can honestly say I would not be where I am now if it wasn't for my friends throughout sort of the 2 years of what I call my family court hell, having my little girl taken away from me. I would not be kind of coming out of that in a positive way if it hadn't been for my wonderful friends and family. And I just want those that may not have that connection within this group, or that do but perhaps don't feel that those are the right people to speak about any issues with. Perhaps, you know, they don't get it, which sadly a lot of people don't. So it's hard to open up when we don't perhaps receive the support that we'd want on that kind of level, because people just don't understand it through no fault of their own. So reach out in this group, reach out to me directly. Please reach out to kind of anyone within the kind of your wider community if that helps you. And I just want to say, don't be like me. So when people say, how are you, you know, how are you doing? Just be honest with those that you can be, because it will be received in a positive way by the right people. Those that don't receive it well, sadly, perhaps aren't meant to be your people. And I've learned that the hard way. I've lost a few friends throughout the past few years, just those that firstly don't get it, but those that don't want to understand either. They've just kind of distanced themselves from me as a result, which is fine. You know, we're all kind of developing, we're all changing, and we're all finding our people, and the people that stay are those that are meant to be in our life. And I'm a firm believer in that. So please always remember that. For those of you that feel alone at the moment, just remember the people that are in your life are those that are genuinely care for you. And I think as we get older, naturally that number decreases, for myself anyway. But please just know that there are people out there like me, like this wonderful community of ladies, who will listen, okay? Anyway, have a lovely rest of the day, all of you, and I will catch up with you soon.